Today I want to share a really powerful phrase that one of my friends says often. And his phrase is, one day you're going to be out of some days. Let's go for a walk and I'll share with you why I think it's so powerful and why it's had a positive impact on my life. So, I think the reason that I found, my friend's name is Corey, that I found Corey's saying so powerful is we all say part of that phrase, right? We all say, one day I'm going to do this and someday I'm going to do that. And, just thinking that, one day we're going to be out of some days, to me is really powerful. We have to think, how important are these things that we say we want to do? And what are we doing to actually achieve these things, right? It's so easy to say, well, someday I'm going to go to Europe and someday I'm going to travel and, someday I'm going to get into shape or start eating better. But, there's going to be a time that we don't have that opportunity anymore. So what are we doing to make sure we're taking full advantage of the goals that we say that we have, the things that we say we want to do? Unfortunately, and you've heard me say this before, if you're 60 years old, you likely have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy, active time remaining. 1,000 weeks. That's not a lot of time, and we want to make sure that we're squeezing all the juice out of this one life that we get to live. But, it's so easy to just put things off, and I think the biggest risk for most of us is that, regular viewers of this channel are people that enjoy saving, enjoy investing, enjoy getting ready for retirement. And for many of us, it's actually hard to think about a life outside of work because, we're at the age now where we've been working hard for 35, 40, 50 years. And it's become such a big part of our identity. But, because of the work I do, I work with hundreds of families and I've seen them successfully make the transition. I can tell you, you're in a space now when you're working. It's a known space. But once you make that transition and that life outside of work is kind of an unknown, right? I mean, you've had vacations, you might have been able to take a sabbatical for a month or two, but it's different. That life outside of work, when you no longer can tell somebody at a party, well, when they ask you, and Americans love to ask this question, what do you do for a living? And we can say, well, I'm the vice president of this, or I head sales for this company, or, I'm an investment advisor. I've been with this firm and helped grow it over the last 20 plus years, right? When you lose that ability, it's such a nice soundbite to say who you are, but the reality is that's not who you are, right? And so we have this one side, we know where we're at now, we know this life, and it's hard to make that transition into this life that we don't quite know now. It's almost like you can see you're at a cliff's edge and you can see the other side, but you really don't know what's on the other side. You can see parts of it, you have ideas, but the vast majority of the time, if you do your planning ahead of time, once you're on that other side, you look back and say, oh, this is so much better. Now, if you love your job, I'm not saying everybody should retire, but if you don't love your job, boy, really think about what you're giving up to continue to do a job that you don't love, right? And what is that extra money going to buy you? If you're financially independent, you're financially independent. Now, if you don't have enough resources to retire and that's something you're working towards, that's fine. We've all gone on this journey and we're in different places on the journey. But don't wait until you've finally gotten the right amount, quote unquote, in your investment accounts to start thinking about retiring. Start thinking now about that. And how do you prepare for that? One thing that I have shared earlier is this idea of these, mini retirements is what I call them. A lot of people would call them sabbaticals. Is there a way that you could take off a month or a couple months from work and try out some things that you think you might enjoy doing in retirement? Maybe you want to get involved. Maybe you've always been a lover of sports and you would love to coach the volleyball team at the high school. but you know, you just don't have time. You know, maybe they start practicing at 3 p.m. and when you're working, that's really hard to do. Is there a way you could either, you know, get off of work at 2 p.m. during the volleyball season for a period of time, or get a month or two away from work to just try these things out and to get you excited and to give you an idea of what retirement might be, and to iterate. You know, you don't want to get to retirement and then invest all this time in something that ends up being something you don't enjoy. Boy, it'd be a lot better if you can iterate in that during your working years. So that's one thing. But again, getting back to this, you know, one day you're going to be out of some days. I find that really powerful on so many different levels. You know, when we're young, we have a lot of time in front of us, but we don't have much money, right? So we're essentially trading time for money. And I think that's a good trade-off when you're young, to a certain extent. I think in your 20s, you know, a lot of financial advisors would say, you know, start saving up as soon as you can. Boy, putting $10,000 into a Roth when you're 20 years old, look at what this will grow to 65. And all that's true. But there's also another truth. The other truth is you're only going to be 20 once. And, you know, if you have an opportunity to do something that you think would be super fun with your friends, maybe somebody's going backpacking through Africa. I've never been to Africa. It's on my list. And if you're in your 20s and you have a chance to do that with your friends and go on some safaris, and you say, you know, I was hoping to save $10,000 my first year working, but, you know, because of this 1 month off before I started work, I'm not going to save anything. I think that's okay. I also think it's okay to borrow money from your parents short term for a trip like that, right? Let's say that happens right after graduation and you don't have that $10,000, but you're going to save it up your first year. Well, you know, I think that's fine. I think it's fine to do that. And I think you're likely going to look back in your 40s and say, I'm glad I did that when I had the opportunity to do it. So you've heard me mention about when you're 60 and 1,000 weeks just earlier in the video. Another way to think about this, you know, if you're close to financially independent, let's say you're at 90% of goal. Boy, you know, how much longer are you going to have to work to go from 90% to 100%? And, you know, we're humans, we're adaptable. Is 90% a goal enough? You know, and you know, could you adjust things where you could make that work and maybe take advantage of the time that you have now? I think for a lot of us we could. And another way to look at it is, you know, if you won $100 million in the lottery, how many of us would say, you know, a year from now I'm still going to be working? I think very few. And so if you're financially independent or really close to financially independent, you know, what's really the difference? If you have enough money to pursue things outside of work that you have a passion for, think about that, you know, there's really no difference between that, if you have enough, and having $100 million. Really, it makes a difference to other people, you know, people that you might leave the money to when you're no longer here. So I think those are important things to be thinking about. Let's see if I have anything else that I want to share. I think the thing I want to close with is, and this is not, again, this is not a religious channel, but I remember sitting in church once when the pastor was giving his sermon, and he said, you know, work out your faith. The Bible says to work out your faith with fear and trembling. And I was probably a teenager. I was probably 13 or 14. And I remember going home that night and you know, having a little trouble sleeping because I had not worked out what my faith was with fear and trembling. And I don't think from a religious standpoint, you know, the preaching about the fear thing is a good thing to do. But I do want to leave you with this thought, just a little bit of fear and trembling. Think about how you want to spend the end of your life. You know, you think about things that are really important for you to get done before you lose your health. And think about that with a little bit of fear and trembling, because, you know, the sad truth is any one of us could lose our health at any time. I'm 58, as I record this. My father had his first stroke when he was younger than me. And I think I've shared with regular viewers know I'm vegan, and I've done that for health reasons, hoping to postpone or eliminate having a stroke, but none of us know. You know, it could happen. In my father's case, he was fortunate. There were really no physical ramifications from his stroke, but it could have gone the other way. And so if you were to have a stroke, if you were to lose your health, how would you feel about that? So work that out with some fear and trembling. Again, I think we're best served by working these things out just, you know, motivationally, in more of a carrot than a stick. But there is that, you know, we could lose our health, and, you know, what would we regret not doing? And those are the things I really want to encourage you to do if you have the opportunity to do it now, if you have the financial resources to do it now. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, as the kids say, thumbs for likes and subs for love. If you haven't subscribed, consider doing it. Leave me a comment. I do read the comments. And until next time, I'm Azul, encouraging you, not the stick, but the carrot, encouraging really all of us to live life to the fullest. We're only young once. Let's use this time wisely.